Even though the bear market is in its full force, Axie Infinity is not stopping and they currently are entering phase 2. So this update has dropped on the 30th of June and it is currently live if you are watching this video. What is new in this origin patch, or in season 0, I believe it's what they are calling it, or an alpha season? So what is new in this update? In the alpha season that they have just released, there are leaderboard rewards. You can win AXS by playing Axie Origin. We will look at those in just a second. The progression, which means the runes, the ranking, the charms, the resources, have all been reset, so you need to get them to the position that you had, which is by crafting, by passing the adventure levels, by collecting your boxes. You will need to get those runes and charms, and whoever does it first will probably, and whoever gets the right runes and charms first will probably have a big advantage. But not to say that people that utilize those lower tier runes and charms correctly will get to those higher ranks as well. Opponent's info, available energy, number of cards in each pile formerly displayed in the top right is now visible again. I'm not sure that this is the right step forward. I liked it without it. A lot less information available on the screen. That means the player himself or herself has to track that information. You cannot display every single piece of information because you're going to make it less competitive. There are quite a lot of balancing changes. We will go into those in a second. It is a big patch, so it might take us a while. They have added a new in-game mechanic, which is called the return. Now, players can select multiple cards from their hand and put them directly on top of the draw pile. This will guarantee those cards are drawn onto the next round, and the cost is 1 energy per card selected. Okay, so it's quite good for setting up combos, but you do sacrifice that 1 round. But it does add that extra element of spiciness. I like this one. I like this one. Not sure if the energy cost is the right way to go forward, and if 3 cards should be the cap. Maybe it should be lower, maybe you can only do 1 or 2 per turn, but it is a good step forward to have a lot more mechanics within the game to make it a lot more competitive. In the balancing changes, we can read upon that. Revenge cards have been updated as well. The maximum number of revenge cards has been reduced from 6 to 4. Again, a good step forward, because I think revenge cards are quite tragic. It's like punishing you twice. The revenge cards now are immediately shuffled into the discard pile instead of being converted from hand, so you're not gonna get screwed as much, I guess. And you can see the balancing changes for those, and they have improved some bug fixes with Mavis, with Bloodmoon, with Robins, and you can read about those yourself. But what's more important is the leaderboard as well as the balancing update, so let's look at those. So for the alpha season, the leaderboard will have about 49,000 AXS in total, rewarding the top 10,000 players, with 500 AXS going to the top 1 player. It's quite the reward, especially that rank 2, rank 3, rank 4 and rank 5 are all getting a hefty reward as well. It kind of drops a little bit from 6 to 10, but that's exactly what you should expect. Rank 1 to 5 is what you want to be fighting for. Quite a lot of prizes out there that you can get yourself your hands on. They did that calculation when AXS was on $16, which is a little bit lower now, but it's still quite a hefty reward, especially if you want to stake that AXS afterwards. So great leaderboard to start off the game with, and it's going to be a season that allows to stress test the game. A lot of bugs are probably going to pop out, a lot of overpowered stuff is going to be created, but let's see how the team handles that and how they can improve on that. And the first step to doing that is through balancing changes. So the first balance change is the return mechanic that allows you to select several cards from your hand and put them at the top of your draw pile, which costs energy. Each card costs 1 energy and it will be brought back to your top of draw pile. Now, this is really good for stuff like Baby, for stuff like Bumpy, those 2 energy costs that you cannot play this turn, but you still want to play them the next turn, it might be something that is worth thinking about. You can select as many cards as you want, as long as you have enough energy to do so. Now, it's probably not going to be the optimal play to play something like the Cottontail to just get rid of your card. Now, it's probably not going to be the optimal play to play something like the Cottontail just to get rid of your card and put it into the next draw pile or into the next hand, but 3 energy in somewhere in the mid game where you are trying to set up a combo that could help you win the game is definitely a mechanic that is worth looking at. Revenge cards have been changed. A dead Axie card is now in the draw pile, and in the hand it will disappear. It's similar to a power card. Based on how many cards were in those piles, the same amount of revenge cards will be shuffled into this discard pile, and the maximum number of revenge cards will be reduced from 6 to 4, so helping to cycle through that deck a little bit quicker once you have lost an Axie. Unstable, a new effect on some cards. After using, the card disappears and the confused card will be shuffled into your discard pile. Interesting. I haven't seen that before. But it can be worth on some cards, especially if it's like a very high cost card. It has an interaction with Banish. Equipping Banish Charm into card with an unstable, Banish will override unstable and the card will indeed be banished, and you will not get a confused into your pile. We got another buff, which is a degrade. When your turn ends, if the card is still in your hand, the card disappears and a confused card will be shuffled into your discard pile. So you always have to play that card pretty much, and it does have an interaction with Ethereal, where Ethereal will override it. Limit how many effects are they putting into the game. Nice, I like it. I really like it that they are playing around with some new effects. Only a set number of copies of this card can be played each turn. Once the limit is reached, other copies will be disabled until the end of the turn. For example, a card with limit 1 means that you can only play 1 copy of that card. Not sure where and when that will be useful, but definitely something that is worth playing around with. Clarification of terminology. Well, we pretty much all know that what this means. Status effects now. Rage probably nerfed, if I'm looking at this right. It goes to a single and AoE attack, deals 2 bonus damage per stack, so this hasn't really changed, but this unit also suffers 1 extra damage from direct attacks and enters Fury form at 10 stacks, so it just does extra damage. It takes extra damage, right? So not that big of a nerf. I was thinking something else would come here. Bubble, single attacks and AoE deal bonus damage equal to 2% of the target current HP per stack. Turn into Bubble Bump upon reaching 3 stack. So instead of Bubble being a defensive ability, they now have changed it into an offensive one. Not sure whether that is the right approach. Honestly, I thought Bubble is a very, very good effect, as it is a defensive one, because there's not that many defensive effects. There's Bubble, there's Leaf, and there's Taunt. You can say it's a defensive one, but I liked Bubble where it was. I guess it was a little bit too powerful, but we'll see how this one works. And Deathmark, whenever your opponent plays an attack card, the target will take 13 damage. Now it takes 15 damage, so quite a bit of a buff. Summon, Trunk has been buffed to 75. Lovely to see. Because for 1 energy, Trunk was simply a little bit too weak. Little Robin, non-multi-hit attacks will deal 12 bonus damage, and multi-hit will deal 6 bonus damage. Nice. Again, Robin was a little bit too strong, especially with those multi-hits. You could have cards that just deal ridiculous amounts of damage with 2 Robins out there. And we have plenty of card changes. Let's look at some of those. They no longer have Banish. All of these cards no longer have Banish, but it doesn't add a card to your hand. It pushes your this card, your selected card, to the top of the draw pile. So not as strong, but it doesn't have Banish anymore. Blue Moon, Hero, Beetroot and Early Bird all have a limit, and they all have a little bit of an increased damage. A Nemo can now heal any ally, but it does have the unstable. Same with Cottontail. Baby, Sakura and Bumpy went all into an energy cost 1, and now they are quite nerfed. So Baby deals 22 damage, and it does have the Exile. Let's have a look at what Exile does again. It disappears after usage. The card disappears and does not go into the banish pile. Okay, so it just simply disappears from the whole game and you cannot take it anymore, which makes sense. And all of those have been nerfed a little bit. They still have innate, so I think Baby has actually a better card now, because 2 energy cost was just quite a lot to play it, whereas 1 energy with innate seems like a good card right now. Scarab deals 60 damage now, but it doesn't have any shield, and you can target any enemy and it will apply doubt for 4 turns. Trifeather now applies doubt for 2 turns, so definitely a strong buff here. All the risky cards down to 70 damage, but they deal 20 more damage and apply fear to self for 2 turns if they are initial. So always remember to play them first if you want that extra damage. Serious, same thing happened, but you apply disarm. With Risky Bird you apply bleed, death mark, so a various mix of debuffs, but they all deal extra damage if they go initial. And Hungry Bird doesn't deal 2 hits anymore, instead it deals 60 damage, and if it's initial you steal 20 HP. So a lot of stuff is happening right here. It will take a while to figure out what the meta is, and all of these cards now deal less damage, and no longer Toothless Bite and Gerbil no longer target the second closest enemy and the furthest enemy if initial. They target them at all times, which means that if you play a triple Toothless Bite you can deal 180 damage to the back lane of your opponent, and they might not be expecting that. So this back lane meta or the jumping meta can still come back to Axie Origin, and we will see whether it does any damage, but I think it could be very interesting. Cerastes and Kingfisher, again the initial has been removed. Scaly Spoon and Indian Star now reflect 50% rather than 25% of the shield lost, which is a giant buff. It's a massive buff, right? Koi, 105 damage, and they deal 15 bonus damage per alive aquatic teammate, not counting summons. So again, I think it's a buff, especially if you use Koi early on in the game, but in the later stages, especially if in the 1v1s, it will be a little bit of a nerf. Topaz back to 25 damage, but it has cap at 120 bonus damage, making it a little bit more viable in the early and mid stages. Goda, extra damage, but it is unstable. Silent Whisperer, a little bit of a nerf, but the poison on this actually heal 1 HP per stack instead of HP loss for 6 turns, so a complete counter to poison teams. So Silent Whisper might be something that you want to consider. Arco, 55 damage, but it removes 2 secrets on the target. Again, very useful if you're playing versus a secret deck. Tiny Turtle, 60 damage, applies stun to target and to self. Okay, that is an interesting mechanic. Again, you sacrifice your Axie, but if it's worth to stun your opponent, it just might be the way to go. Rest of the cards, not really much happening, especially that people don't really play these cards. And Oranda, Imp, Leafy and Yam all have received a little bit of a buff. Actually no, Yam and Leafy received a buff in damage, Imp and Oranda received a nerf. Tool cards, Strawberry, I haven't really seen people play Strawberry. Same with Forest Wrath. Now it has energy cost of 0 and it has damage of 0. It used to attack all enemies, whereas now you can target any ally and the next turn it will reflect 25 damage for the next attack against the target, and it will banish. Runes have changed quite a lot. We are 15 minutes into this video. Let's just run through them very quickly to see what has changed. Holy Prayer removes a 1 curse card instead of 2. Sturdy Fighter is now epic rather than mystic, and it consumes 50% of current shield, and you deal equal bonus damage equal to 1.5 times that amount. Collect and Protect is an epic rather than, it's a mystic rather than epic, and at odd rounds you draw 1 extra card and you get 50 shield rather than 30. Heart of the Ocean is a solo, and when your turn starts, this Axie gains 1 bubble. A bubble bomb detonated by this Axie deals double damage. Wow. So maybe a bubble team will be something that we want to consider, but now Heart of the Ocean no longer giving you that extra HP, no longer as strong of a rune as it was. But now instead of Heart of the Ocean on the Aqua, we have a new Heart of the Ocean, which is the Gaia's Embrace, and that increases all Axie HP by 50%, and Rise and Ruin will have the same buff that Gaia's Embrace had. So very interesting. Very, very interesting how they swapped that around, making sure that plans are viable by using the Gaia's Embrace rather than playing an Aqua front lane with Heart of the Ocean. So if you can craft Gaia's Embrace early on, you have a good chance of making it into the leaderboards first. Calcium Armor and Hearty Warrior no longer provide you with 30 extra HP, but they do provide you with a little bit more damage, making sure that Aquas are there to deal damage rather than to be tanks. Bubbles no longer provide you with a defense, and then no more Heart of the Ocean and no more extra HP from Calcium Armor and Hearty Warrior means that Aquas are quite squishy now, probably pushing them down lower in the rankings of Axies, whereas they used to be quite powerful, especially at the front lane with a Calcium Armor. Feather Descent, not much has changed here. I don't see anything bolded out. Venomborn, it has been renamed to the Incubator. Summons summoned by this Axie gain 14 bonus max health. Okay, I'm not sure how many Venoms. Actually, no, that's a bird. Never mind. I thought that was on a reptile, and I didn't think that reptiles have any summons. Energy Guru attack cards also deal 5 damage per energy cost to all enemies, and now they deal 8 damage per energy cost, which is a big change. Because if this effect summons, then all you need is 2 of these to kill a summon rather than 3 with this change, right? Or actually, I might be talking out of my ass. I think they have 18 damage and it actually doesn't affect anything, but it's still a nice buff. Pangolin Scale, cannot gain shield, take 20% less damage. Cannot gain shield, take 15% less damage. A change that was definitely needed. Playing those beasts at the mid and the front lane was something that needed to be changed because they were too tanky and they could simply spam out damage. Poison Touch, applied 1 poison to attacker, take 20% less damage from poisoned enemies, take 2% less damage per poison stack on the attacking enemy, and it maxes at 20%. So a bit of a nerf, definitely a bit of a nerf, because it used to be flat 20%, whereas now it's 2% per stack, so you need 10 stacks at least to have the full effect, and then of course your opponent can be clearing that, and it's not gonna have as much of an effect. Malediction, deal 10% more damage against debuffed enemies and take 20% less damage from debuffed enemies. This has been balanced to 15 and 15. Mini Legion, your summoned units no longer have extra 10 HP, but they do deal 5 damage per summon to all enemies at the beginning of your turn. And finishing off with the charms, they have been renamed, and we see that the plant's Charm of Vitality no longer provides you with shield stats, but it does provide you with HP. And what this does is plants are now the tanks that we need in the team, especially with the Gaia's Embrace rune. No longer Aquas will be played on the front, but plants will be the ones that you want to have on your front lane. Reptiles no longer have the heal stat, but instead they have the shield stat, which is also a really good change. And Bubble Paste, and it used to be on any skill or secret card, whereas now it is on an attack card. A massive patch. It will take us quite a long time to figure out what the meta is. Let me guys know what teams you have come up with, what you think will be possible and overpowered in this patch. I'm thinking of a couple of plants myself. We'll see how that goes, but for now that will be it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my YouTube channel for daily playthrough content, and I will see you in the next one.